Good night. Sweet dreams. That's what my dad would say to me. But sometimes I had trouble falling asleep. Then he would tell me stories about his travels. I want this tradition to live on. So now, let me share my stories with you. When the weather at home gets too uncomfortable, when damp, cold, and gloomy streets weigh heavily on my soul, I always find myself drawn to the sea. When the days start getting shorter and the lack of sunlight causes my head to start hanging, it's high time for me to head to the equator. That's how I end up on a plane, looking out over the endless stretches of the Atlantic Ocean. According to the flight map, we should be arriving soon, but from my window seat, I can't see even the slightest patch of land. Wherever I look, there's nothing but deep blue water. The airplane takes a wide turn to the right, tipping my side down to the ocean. I lean into the movement, gazing at the surface of the sea and feeling like a child on a roller coaster. My eyes are glued to the Atlantic. Suddenly, at the edge of my vision, I see them emerging from the sea, the Caribbean dream beaches of Costa Rica. The excitement of the descent gives way to anticipation for my trip. A beachside retreat is just the thing I need to wash the European winter out of my system. I can hardly wait as the rubber wheels of the plane touch down on the runway. The next day, I find myself standing on the beach overlooking the Pacific coast. The late morning sun shines across the waves, which are dotted here and there with people swimming. Normally, I would have packed a book to sit here and read, but today I'm actually here to meet someone. Yesterday evening, I struck up a conversation with a local I happened to meet in a small bar near my hotel. We got onto the topic of surfing, and he eagerly agreed to hang out and watch the surfers today. Cristobal is how he introduced himself, although apparently only his mother calls him that, and I should just call him Chris. I scanned the beach a few times, looking right and left down the perfect white sand, but my friend doesn't seem to have arrived yet. I'm not surprised. I've been in Costa Rica for less than a day and have already come to understand that the clocks work a little differently here. I settle down in the fine sand and close my eyes. The sand is pleasantly toasty under my bare hands and feet. I dig my soles into the grainy texture and receive a wonderful sand massage in return. My hands brush over the hot surface, savoring the way it seems to warm me to my core. I breathe in the salty Pacific breeze. It mixes with a hint of sunscreen. All I have to do is lie here in the fine sand on this little patch of Costa Rica, and I can feel all the tension in my muscles melt away. Every cell in my body relaxes, as if I'm finally removing a piece of clothing that I only now realize was too tight. I'm so relaxed that I almost don't notice when Chris sits down next to me in the sand. I crack open my eyes, blinking for a moment at the bright sun, and give him a warm nod in greeting. The young man shakes his long hair at me with a cheerful smile. "You seem like you've found your place in the world," he says. He stretches out his legs in the sand, and I notice one of his ankles is bandaged. I hadn't realized it when we were sitting last night, and when I politely ask about it, he gives me a casual shrug in return. "Just a little surfing injury, happens all the time. I'll be back on the water before you know it." "That's why he's here on dry land with me," he continues, "instead of being out there." He gestures broadly at the ocean, where I can indeed see a number of people on colorful surfboards. According to Chris, it's a perfect day for surfing. The movements of the surfers on the Pacific resemble a circus acrobatics show or an improvised dance. Chris points to a man on an orange surfboard, one of his friends, he tells me, and explains that he's about to go into a tunnel. The man in question is crouched on his board on top of a wave that, as I watch it, rises higher and higher like a wall of water. As it begins to break, the man appears to tip forward down the front of the wall and straight toward the surface of the water. But then he's suddenly standing, angling his board to the side and riding along the edge of the wall, right as it starts crashing behind him. I watch the man glide with ease, as if there's a track hidden inside the ocean that he's attached to. He seems to be racing the wave, to see whether he'll reach the end of it first or if it'll break over his head before he does. At one point, another part of the wave curls over him, but he emerges out the other side just as smoothly as before. Astonishingly, the man keeps his balance all the way until the end of the wave, where he rides over a flatter section and drops himself into the ocean. I have the urge to applaud him. Chris almost looks like he's fighting the same impulse. "He's gotten so much better," he sighs wistfully. "Great waves today." We spent the rest of the morning watching surfers, with Chris offering me all sorts of interesting commentary and explanations. He points to a spot off to our left, where there don't seem to be as many surfers. The waves are lower there, which I learn is great for certain kinds of surfing, but when the tunnels are this good, who'd want to miss out on that? The more we watch them, the more the surfers' balance seems otherworldly. With Chris pointing out the little movements of their leg muscles, I begin to see that it's far from effortless. The constant flow of tiny corrections and adjustments to their weight distribution, bending one knee a microscopic amount here, leaning forward just a tad there, sliding their outstretched arms through the water. I have to conclude that it's not their balance that's supernatural. That clearly came from hours and hours of practice. No, it's their reaction speed that makes no sense to me. The ability to keep recalculating their position every moment. I ask Chris how this is possible. How are they able to keep up with everything they have to do out there? He looks off into the distance for a minute, thinking about it. But in the end, he turns back to me with an apologetic shrug and tells me, "No idea, man. It's all just flow." As simple as it sounds, watching the surface off the coast of Costa Rica, Chris' words make sense to me. These people out there in the waves of the Pacific are completely at one with themselves, their boards, and the ocean. Utmost focus on their current task, the wave in front of them. Not a hint of an unnecessary thought. I find myself making a resolution to emulate their attitude in my life, to live more in the moment, keeping my focus and appreciation for whatever is currently in front of me. After the action on the beach, even though, strictly speaking, I was only watching and not actually standing on a board myself, I feel like I could use a slow, relaxing afternoon. Fortunately, my schedule for the day fits this need perfectly. My next stop in Costa Rica is a rescue center for sloths. I enter the grounds in the middle of the rainforest, and it's as if I'm stepping through the gate to a small piece of paradise. Narrow trails crisscross the area, winding their way around dense tropical flora and connecting the various buildings of the rescue center. Birds chirp invisibly in the treetops, which bear such melodious names as Ceiba, Pochote, and Guanacaste. Every now and then, a colorful blur of feathers shoots out of the lush green leaves and zips across the path I'm walking along. It's hot and humid. It smells of wood, leaves, and the sweet scent of colorful flowers. I feel like I'm in an adventure novel, as if I might have to pull out my machete at any moment, because the path ahead ends in impenetrable thicket. But before my imagination runs away with me, I reach the central building of the facility. I have an appointment with the director of the rescue center. Her name is Angela, and she told me on the phone that I was welcome to drop by. She's always happy when people show an interest in the situation of the sloths. The middle-aged woman is already waiting in front of the low white building to welcome me. She's wearing the same blue polo shirt as all the other volunteers here. A short fringe falls cheekily across her forehead. She smiles when she sees me coming and greets me with a firm handshake. She leads me across the grounds, explaining how things work around here and seamlessly segueing into introductions whenever we pass by a sloth. I get to know all sorts of lovely animals, such as Princess Leia, Tarzan, and a little Cinderella. As we walk, she tells me that she has mixed feelings about her charges. It's a complicated situation, she says. She loves them all very much, but she would be happier if they had never had to come here in the first place. Each of the 160 or so animals in this rescue center has a story. Some lost their mothers to predators. Others were injured when trying to climb up the power lines that span the rainforest. Angela's voice resonates with empathy. At the end of my personal tour, Angela leads me to a small gazebo tucked away at the end of one of the many walkways. "There's a surprise for me here," she says, with a hint of mischief in her voice. The structure itself doesn't appear too unusual. 4 old wooden pillars connecting into a little cone-shaped roof. In the middle of the structure, hanging from the ceiling like a swing, is an equally old-looking woven chair. But the occupant of the chair is very special indeed. Angela introduces me to Buttercup, an old friend of hers who just happens to also be a three-toed sloth. At 23 years of age, she's one of the oldest animals here. And right now, she's lying upside down in the middle of the round chair, looking like she owns the place. Unlike what I expected, Buttercup actually moves around quite a bit. Slowly, yes, but her hands and feet constantly drift between the supporting ropes of the chair, grabbing first this one, then that one. It almost looks like she's trying them out to see which one feels nicest to hold onto. Angela lowers herself very gradually into a sitting position, gesturing to the wooden gazebo floor for me to sit as well. I imitate her, moving as slowly as I can so as not to alarm her friend. She tells me that Buttercup is the reason she started volunteering here all those years ago. There just was this instant connection, she explains, although I can tell that she can't quite find the right words to describe their friendship. But I feel like somehow I understand anyway. Buttercup watches us intently, and when I look over to meet her eyes, I feel my heart melting at the old creature's soft gaze. Her eyes are full of interest and kindness, and her mouth is positioned in an easy smile. She seems full of patience and good nature. I almost feel like I'm sitting with a doting grandmother who lovingly listens to my stories despite not understanding my modern lingo, and then offers me homemade cookies. I'm more than happy to spend the rest of my visit sitting quietly in her company, even after Angela has to go back to her tasks. I lean against one of the wooden pillars and look out into the lush green trees, taking care to make all my movements as slow and deliberate as possible. Just being in Buttercup's presence, I feel like I'm adapting to her speed. My internal pace decelerates in the humidity, and I'm overcome by a deep relaxation. Late in the evening, I lie in bed in my hotel room with the window opened wide. The blanket is pleasantly thin, a wisp of material that covers me up to my chest. On the bedside table is a glass carafe with cool water and lemon slices. My watch and an open notebook are also there. It's the beginning of a starry night. In the distance, I can hear the nighttime hustle and bustle on the beaches of Costa Rica as a faint murmur. A large ceiling fan above me spins at a leisurely pace. I watch the rotor blades circle around and let myself be lulled by the steady sound of their movement. At some point, my eyes close on their own. From the darkness behind my eyelids, colorful images of my day gradually emerge. Sunshine and sparse clouds, sandy beaches and coconut palms, peace and joy of life. Buttercup is sitting on her chair, her head upside down. She's smiling at me. Her peaceful disposition colors everything like the tinted lenses of sunglasses. In the reflection of her eyes, I can see the ocean, dotted with colorful surfboards. I'm on one of them, riding to the top of a giant wave. I glide down it, through a tunnel of 1,000 blues, and into the land of dreams.